This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, I'm Stephen Rabinowitz, and as we have all this Sweet 16 talk, just a few little things happen across the way. Even before we wrote this damn show, and we'll talk about Tyreek Hill joining the Dolphins in a second, they lifted the vax mandate and Kyrie Irving can play every game except in Canada again. Anthony Strait, how do you feel about that?
Hi. Well, number one, I am back from my vacation in South Beach, and number two, I still don't think the Nets are going to make it to the finals. It's like
you're not going to hear about any more NBA basketball or Vax Friday tonight. Hey, that's Jay Kaplan in the other quarter. Welcome to our very special Sweet 16 edition of On This Sports Lines. After an exhausting weekend of college basketball, I'm still sweating. Take a look. We'll talk Sweet 16 region by region, and we'll also do a little sandwich of crazy NFL free agency moves. This sports sandwich is good, so I love BLTs. If you want to know, send me one if you want any other chance. Go right ahead. All right. There's no great transition to DeShaun Watson, but we're going to do it anyway. After weeks of courting that was more uncomfortable than any first episode of The Bachelor, watch it, it's true. The final rose went to the Cleveland Browns, after DeShaun said no. One day later, a 5-year, $230 million contract, fully guaranteed, basically suspension-proofed. DeShaun said yes to Cleveland for the low price of 6 draft picks and your entire morality. Anthony, let's examine this right now.
You know what? I actually texted you when this was going down, before this all went down. Like, was I the only one who felt a little uneasy about these teams falling over DeShaun Watson as if the guy hasn't been accused of sexual misconduct in the last year and a half, almost 2 years now. I mean, the Cleveland Browns, and I've said this about any team that would have did this, the Cleveland Browns basically sold their soul for a Super Bowl ring. I mean, the morality, without question. You think about the fact that he has 22 women filed civil suits against him for sexual misconduct, and he's possibly facing a suspension from the NFL because following their conduct policy. Yet the Cleveland Browns still traded for a guy who may not even play for a certain amount of games, even if he's available for them starting next season. On top of that, they guarantee a $230 million contract. Now, I'm not. There's a reason why I'm not an NFL general manager or in the front office, but I think in this case, nobody in their right mind would have given him a guaranteed contract, not knowing what exactly is going to happen as far as his legal issues. Now, granted, he's not going to be criminally charged or anything. Doesn't mean he's innocent. Certainly doesn't mean he's off the hook for any circumstances. But how conflicted is this Cleveland Brown franchise? Last week, and I'm reading this, I got this off Yahoo. After the trade was announced, the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center received 1,000+ donations over a 24-hour period. They released a statement. We understand the story surrounding DeShaun Watson joining the Cleveland Browns team is triggering for far too many of our friends and neighbors. And of course, for those who need additional support, they give out their the contact information that the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center is available 24/7, 365 days a year. Now, knowing all of this, and the Cleveland Browns still going all in, it just lets you know that I think they and by the way, we all made jokes about the press releases they let out earlier this week. That was about as cookie cutter as it gets. But and I let Jay really go into the unleashing moment of this. But it just lets you know how desperate the Cleveland Browns see themselves. I think they see themselves as, well, we're a quarterback away, and this is the guy. And it's like, I don't think you're one player away, let alone a guy who is bringing a lot of heat and a lot of dark clouds with him along the way. But long story short, I think the Cleveland Browns just reaffirmed why they've been one of the worst ran teams for such a long time and such a laughing stock, because it basically before up to that point was committed to Baker Mayfield, who we'll talk about later on in the show, and just did an about face almost immediately. I mean, it's just been a bizarre week as far as NFL free agency as a whole, but this takes the cake because this is beyond football. This is literally an issue of a young man who couldn't behave himself as far as being off the field or behaving himself in the presence of young women, and this is why I feel conflicted with so many teams going after him and fawning on him, because it's almost like they're so focused on football that the person and the morality just goes out the window. And Jay, I'll let you chime into this, and I have to ask you, what was your thoughts when you were seeing all this play out?
Look, it's funny. I was trying to find the words because I just kind of kept doing this and like, are you fracking kidding me? Lindsey Jones, who's one of the national NFL writers at The Athletic, penned a piece in the wake of the Browns landing Watson that was titled, quote, Browns gave away a lot in trade for DeShaun Watson, including their morals. And I couldn't have said it better myself. So that's kind of where it is for me, Ant. The Browns organization, especially since the Haslams have taken over, has been a shining example of cluelessness and classlessness. But, this may be the icing on a cake that never should have been made, let alone been set out for anyone to eat. But it's just further proof of what I talked about on our bracketology show when we discussed the Russell Wilson trade, about there being two very distinct classes of teams in the NFL, those with franchise quarterbacks and those who don't and will do literally anything, no matter how stupid it may be when looked at logically, to get one. If you look at the move within the 3-foot window of just the on-field impact, then yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. The Browns were clearly ready to move on from Baker Mayfield, and Watson would definitely be an improvement at the quarterback position. He's thrown for 104 touchdowns against 36 picks, over 14,500 yards, a 67.8% completion percentage, a career 104.5 passer rating. He made the Pro Bowl every year from 2018 to 2020. He set career bests in 2020, completed 70.2% of his passes, 33 touchdowns, led the NFL with 4,823 yards and an 8.9 yards per attempt rate, along with a career best 112.4 passer rating. But unfortunately, there's more than just the on-field impact. Yes, a Houston grand jury declined to return felony or even misdemeanor charges against Watson. And yes, in this country, you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. But guys, when 22 women file civil lawsuits accusing you of sexual assault or sexual misconduct during massage appointments, that's not a good look for the guy who occupies not only the most important position on a football team, but is usually considered the face of the franchise. And Anthony, you nailed it with, the press releases from the Browns ownership and front office, and the fact that they utilized every empty boilerplate platitude and say nothing verbiage ever imagined. But are we really surprised? I mean, every NFL team that brings in a player who instantly upgrades the team on the field, but is a PR hand grenade waiting to go boom off the field, does this. They rationalize the move, knowing full well they mortgage their souls for a chance for their team to be relevant again. And that'd be bad enough. But the Browns also mortgage their future. That $230 million guaranteed contract through 2026, if it all plays out, has salary cap implications, especially on the back end, since he's only slated to be paid $1 million this season as a hedge against possible suspension for violating the NFL personal conduct policy, which would land him on Goodell's commissioner's exempt list. And then there's the draft capital they gave away. I'm sorry. DeShaun Watson is not worth 3 first-round picks in this year, next year, and the following year, plus a 2023 third-round pick and a 4th in 2024. Rabbi, I hate to steal a part of a Facebook post that you made last week about Watson to close out my angle, but it's spot on. And here's the end of it. Does he deserve to be a quarterback again? Absolutely. I'm not too sure about that. But the way he's being fawned over by teams and analysts alike is sickening. The NFL sets society back a ton sometimes. Rabbi, I couldn't agree with you more.
I know you said he doesn't deserve. I mean, he does deserve to be a quarterback again. Unfortunately, we've seen people get in. We've seen people go on with their lives in the NFL for much, much worse. Look at Ray Lewis. I know Ray Rice didn't do anything wrong. I know Ray Rice was never back in the league, but he was only back in the league because he ended up being a loss of talent. And there have been many other quarterbacks that have been in the NFL. But the way it's amazing how important, and I know, Jay, we talked about this last week, or I think a few weeks ago, how that quarterback position, you have such a high level talent as Watson is, get into the market, how everybody, and once the criminal charges were dropped, which means almost nothing to me because there was never enough evidence for him to actually get charged with any of this in the meantime. But once that happened and everybody was fawning over, where is he going to get traded? What's going to happen with his career? I'm like, yes, he's an elite level talent, but calm the hell down. There are better citizens in this country who can still play your quarterback position at a high level and end up helping your team out. That's simple as that. Also, and I hate to say this, what the hell is this going to do to their standing in the AFC? I don't think the Cleveland Browns are even a playoff team. Even if by some godforsaken miracle this year, Watson plays all 17 games, and they say, well, he was out last year. That's perfectly fine. I doubt that's going to happen. Knock on wood. But just to tell me, they're still the third best team in that division. And that's not even counting. I don't know what the Steelers' quarterback situation is. If the Steelers get a competent quarterback, they're still the worst team in that division. They're still worse than Buffalo. They're still worse than New England. They're still worse than Indianapolis. They're still worse than Tennessee. They're still worse than what's left of Kansas City. They're still worse than Vegas. They're still worse than Denver. And they're still worse than the Rams.
And they may not even be as good as the Colts.
I said Indianapolis already.
Okay,
so that's perfectly fine. But what are you doing? First of all, you also have no wide receivers to throw to. I don't know what changed the Browns' minds to basically be like, come here, DeShaun, take all of our money and we'll make sure you get paid all $229 million of your dollars. If you lose $1 million, we're so sorry. There's a lot of backlash already, and I give the city of Cleveland a lot of credit because they know how terrible and annoying this situation is. I like the Cleveland Browns as a franchise. I don't want to see them become the Washington Commanders and their real respective women because this move puts them down the fucking train.
Yeah.
They're going to be a Rabbi, Alan Petrilli, who's married to my best friend and our former show host, Nisa. He comes from the area. He's a Cleveland Browns fan. And when I told him what was going on, the negative emojis that he was sending back to me via text, it takes a lot to be a Browns fan. They basically are the dictionary definition of the phrase long-suffering fan base. But even he was just going, ugh.
All right.
So
let's move on. It's like that devil emoji that continues to go round and round. That's how I feel about this situation. All right. On to the Sweet 16. We're going to go region by region. Let's start with the East. As we are going to the city of brotherly love, also known as the city of no number 1 seeds. We have the number 3 seed Purdue taking on the definition of Cinderella, the third 15 seed, but the second straight year that we have a 15 seed, by the way, in this part of the bracket. That's St. Peter's, of course. And then we have 4 seed UCLA, who is okay with playing games for only the last 10 minutes of a game, versus North Carolina, who is okay with playing the first 30 minutes of the game. So you have a full team here somehow. Anthony, we're going to talk about a bunch of things, but let's talk about who we're not surprised is in this Final Four in Philadelphia.
Well, we're not surprised the Purdue Boilermakers is in the Sweet 16. I think it's more of a surprise of just how badly the Big Ten performed last weekend. Yikes! I mean, they had the most teams in the tournament field with 9, and that conference really took it on the chin. I mean, Michigan and Purdue are really the last 2 teams carrying that tattered Big Ten flag at this point. But Purdue has done it with the size up front. I mean, you look at the combination of a 7'4" guy as Zach Edey and 6'10" Trevor Williams caused a lot of matchup problems up front, and also giving rebounding and second chance points. Now, Purdue during the season, they were 4th nationally in three-point shooting and 6th in field goal percentage. So they obviously score points, and we all know that. But looking at the first 2 rounds, Purdue they're getting to the foul line an awful lot too. So they're doing it the old-fashioned way. Rebounding, second chance points, and just drawing fouls. The Boilermakers out-rebounded their first 2 tournament opponents 83-61 and outscored them 60-13 at the foul line. Through the first 2 rounds, Purdue has 18 more free throws made and 29 more attempts than any other team in the tournament. The Boilermakers plus 11 rebound margin ranks them only behind Kansas and North Carolina among the teams who made it in the tournament in the Sweet 16. And also that's the size up front is actually offset and it's given a good one combination with Jaden Ivey, who's averaged 20 points a game through the first 2 matchups in the tournament. But the Boilermakers in their victory over Texas, an 81-71 win, they went 33 of 46 from the free throw line, and that's the most free throw attempts Purdue has posted in a single game since 2002. And obviously, the Rabbi and I, we were either in college or college bound around that time. So we're talking about literally 20 years here. But Edey drawn 7 fouls in each of the last 2 games and 15-22 from the charity stripe. It just lets you know that the Boilermakers has figured out a way to win games, either in an ugly fashion or even doing it how to do it all regular season, and that's with precise shooting. So it's not a surprise that the Boilermakers are here. It's a surprise that they're the highest remaining seed left in the region after what we saw last weekend.
Well, Rabbi,
yeah.
remember what I said
Hold
to
on.
you when we were breaking down? Follow up. Because remember
Okay.
what I said to you when we were breaking down the brackets, and I talked about Purdue, and the reason I saw them advancing deep into this region is because I thought the bottom half of that bracket would break in a way that favored them. Now, granted, I didn't see St. Peter's knocking Kentucky out, but I did see Kentucky getting knocked out before the Boilermakers would have to face them. I thought they would be in this position. It's one of the few things apparently that I got right, according to some people.
About one of the only things you got right. And Anthony, we're about to get to one of the things that Jay got wrong, although on this show last week, I basically said North Carolina can play one of its better games, and maybe they have a shot against Baylor. Jay dismissed that pretty much without a doubt. And then, of course, they went on to beat them. As ugly as it might seem, UNC is very much a surprise to be in this portion of the brackets.
Yeah, Rabbi, what did you say to me on text that what was it on?
I said you basically have negged yourself into a.
No, use the exact phrase. What did you say? Negative Nancy,
you negative Nancy yourself into a Sweet 16 team in North Carolina.
Yeah. Look, we all know that the captain obvious pick for, team we're surprised that's here is St. Peter's. But, the Rabbi is going to wax poetic about the tournament's #1 Cinderella and bracket buster in his game to watch angle, which allows me to talk about the Tar Heels. Am I surprised they beat Marquette in the 8-9 game? Nope. Am I surprised they blew them up by 32 points? Yeah, kind of.
Yes.
Am I surprised they jumped out to a 25-point lead against the defending champion Baylor Bears through the first 30 minutes of that game? Very much so. Am I surprised they gave all 25 points back from that point on after power forward Brady Manick was ejected on a flagrant 2 foul, followed by shooting guard Caleb Love fouling out on an offensive foul because he was forcing things in an attempt to provide UNC some offense after Manick was out? Not in the least, because unfortunately, it's not even the first or second time I've seen it happen. Yeah, the Tar Heels somehow managed to survive OT and collect a win, but of all the teams in Sweet 16, they may be the one who least deserves to be here. They made so many bad plays and bad decisions once Manick and then Love were out of the game, such as their epic failure at inbounding the ball, something that should be simple, right? And advancing it against the pressing, trapping defense Baylor threw at them, that they deserve to lose, and I wouldn't have been surprised if they had. Their utter lack of depth, shooters, scorers, and playmakers beyond their starting 5 got seriously exposed. There's a reason, that Baycott, who couldn't make the free throws that would have locked down the win in regulation, Manic, Leaky Black, who played as scared on offense as I've seen him late in the game and in overtime, Love and Davis are called the Iron Five. UNC needs them to play major minutes. Baycott and Black were on the floor for 40, while Davis played all 45 and make major plays for them to win. Manic was destroying Baylor, 26 points in 28 minutes before the ejection, and Davis was the reason they managed to hang on for the win, scoring 30 points with 5 boards and 6 dimes, shooting 8 of 17 from the floor, 5 of 10 from 3, and 9 of 10 from the strike. Carolina came into this tournament having gone 12-3 down the stretch, largely due to an improved defense, which held Marquette to 0.84 points per possession, and Baylor to less than 1 point per possession. They need to keep that up, and they need to continue to do the other things that got them here. Feeding Baycott in the post and having him continue to be the double-double machine he's been all season, helping UNC win the points in the paint and rebounding battles. That frees up Manic to rain threes down on opponents, opening up spacing for Love and Davis. UNC needs at least one of their guards to score the ball each game. Love did it against Marquette. Davis did it against Baylor. Leaky Black needs to shut down the opponent's best perimeter player, and in this case, it's likely Jaime Jaquez of UCLA, though we'll see about that. And all 5 starters need to stay out of foul trouble and play the 30-plus minutes per game they've averaged during the regular season and did again against Marquette. As a fan, look, I'm happy that Tar Heels are in the Sweet 16, but I'm not happy about how they got here. The team we saw against Marquette in that first 30 minutes against Baylor will run 4th-seeded UCLA out of the gym, especially if Jaquez can't play or is less than 100% due to yet another ankle injury. This one may actually be a high ankle sprain, which he sustained with a little under 7 minutes left in the win over St. Mary's. But the Tar Heel team that we saw in the last 10 minutes in overtime against Baylor, that squad's going to end its season on Friday night.
I will have to say this about what I saw against North Carolina. I just don't understand that team sometimes. I think the Duke game really just kind of showed some people what this team really is when it's at its best. And I said, yes. And by the way, I said this to you. You're an 8 who beats a 1. You have no right to say, I don't like how they got there. I'm sorry. If it's an 8 over 16, you have every right. But you still, again, as you said, though, you did give a lot of credit to all of the stuff that they did right in that first 30 minutes. But there is a lot of stuff that could bite them in the ass. There really is.
I think I said to somebody, I said, think about this. If they had been up by, let's say, 10 or even 15 when Manic went out, I don't think they win that game.
I don't know. The thing is, I don't know, because I was expecting that run for Baylor to happen. There was just a lot of stuff that kind of.
I expected a run.
I think a lot of people expected some sort of run. Like I said, a lot of people called it. That would have been the Frank Reich of comebacks, considering they were down almost 25.
Yep.
Anthony, you want to get something in here? Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Well, you know what? No, I want to say this though. I mean. Yes, UNC came very close with a historic choke job, but I give them credit for poise in overtime. Look, we wasn't lead that big.
I don't know how much poise was there.
In the way that they lost the lead, and the fact that they lost 2 key players along the way, but was still able to kind of, get it together and make some key shots in overtime to win that game. I mean,
there Jay is, by the way, negative Nancy, his team to a possible Final Four. It really reminds me of the Bill Guthridge team that kind of snuck in as an 8 seed in 2000. We'll see what happens.
It's this simple. Manic can't get ejected or foul out. It's that simple.
That is not a simple thing to do. Okay, let's talk quickly about Purdue and St. Peter's, which is the second game on Friday night. I think one thing.
Peacocks, gotta let them fly.
Yes. I will say this. God, Anthony. I do want to wax a little more poetic about Jaden Ivey of Purdue, because this guy is one of the most exciting guys in college basketball, and you're not going to see him in Purdue next year. He's going to be a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Big shots against Texas in the round of 32 matchup really late in the game. He is now a 36% shooter from 3. He was a 26% shooter last year. You still see plays that basically make him the NFT star of this year's NCAA tournament, and that is something that is probably going to go pretty much around the same, what's the word, honors that happens with gym dance, just gives out the tie every single year at the Final Four. But I think that's going to become a big thing. But you want to watch Jaden Ivey play almost every single time, especially because there's almost no player in the league that has gone better from year to year. And that man is now a beast, and they cannot wait to see him on the next level. But Purdue's got a very good chance in the Final Four. I love St. Peter's a lot. You know the story. They're basically New York City's team because they're a 10-minute drive to Lower Manhattan. They play at an arena called the Run Baby Run Arena, which was just bought out this year by a 1968 graduate who basically nicknamed the arena of the nickname of their 1968 team. This is only their fourth NCAA appearance, obviously their first win. Beat the Kentucky double, beating Kentucky in a very good game. Again, another team that went into overtime against a much better team and whooped them. They don't take defensive possessions off. You also saw that against Murray State, a team that's about as quick as they are. Daryl Beggs the third, who went for 27 as a guy who can make a lot of shots. You got, remember, this team started out 12-11 this year, and now they're at the point where their coach, in former McDonald's All-American Shaheen Holloway, is very likely going to end up at Seton Hall when this is all said and done, now that Kevin Willard has left and gotten their way over to Maryland. I'm very, very interested to see what happens in this game because this is the third team to make it to the Sweet 16 as a 15 seed, but the other two, Oral Roberts last year got trounced by Arkansas in this round, and everybody remembers the Dunk City team of Florida Gulf Coast in 2013 that also got trounced by their rival Florida, their in-state rival Florida in this round. Will miracles happen again? This might actually be the best win of all if they can get this win on Friday night in Philly. Wait and see. This is going to be a very interesting matchup, but if it's close, get your popcorn ready.
Well, Rabbi, and the other thing about St. Peter's, still playing is that there is someone who can finally challenge Drew Timme for the best mustache in all of college basketball.
Another guy who has a big time, Doug Eggert, who is about to get a big NIL deal because of that mustache. First ever Cinderella of the NIL era, by the way. Please don't leave that out. It's a big deal. All right, let's go to the West brackets. The first time that the Chase Center in San Francisco has hosted a regional. And guess what? All four top seeds are invited to this party. Number one, Gonzaga might have some Adam Morrison flashbacks from 2006. They played in Oakland and against UCLA in the Sweet 16 then. Right. But they'll play number 4, Arkansas. These were both the 8 teams last year that are back in the Sweet 16. Then there's number 2, Duke. And if you were talking about how the Big Ten had a bad weekend, how about the ACC, which still has 3 teams left in the tournament? What? And number 3, Texas Tech, one of 3 Big 12 teams left. That makes a little more sense. Anyway, Jay, there's no shock that Gonzaga is back here, but as you and I talked about, almost every team had a bumpy ride to the Sweet 16, and Gonzaga was no exception.
No. I mean, were they tested? Yes. I did not expect them to only be up by 2 at the half against Georgia State in round 1, nor did I expect them to be down by 10 at the half against Memphis. Am I surprised they passed those tests? Absolutely not. The Gonzaga team that we saw blow out Georgia State 58-39 in the second half and then outscore Memphis 51-37 in that second half is the team that I've seen them be all season for the most part. I don't expect them to dominate Arkansas like they did Georgia State, where Drew Timme went for 32 and 13. Chet Holmgren put up a 19.17 rebound, 5 assists, 7 blocks stat line. I don't expect to see Andrew Nembhard stuff the stat sheet, 9.6 boards, 11 assists against only 3 turnovers. And complementary pieces like Rasir Bolton and Anton Watson combined for 20 points, 6 boards, and 3 assists. But they need to do better than what they showed against Memphis, where the only support that Timme, who went for 25 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 assists, the only support he got was from Nembhard, who chipped in with 23 points and 5 assists and single-handedly kept the Zags in the game in the first half. They got 17 out of Bolton, which was nice. Those two guys combined to shoot 8 of 16 from 3. The rest of the team was 1 for 11. Watson was a no-show, 0 points. But the glaring thing for me in that game was the way Holmgren was manhandled for the most part by Memphis big man Jalen Duren into a quiet 9.9 rebound, 4 block game where he only attempted 7 field goals and 3 free throws. That's got to be very disconcerting for Mark Few, and it's something that he has to figure out a way to not have happen against the Razorbacks. Timmy reamed out his teammates for allowing Memphis to flat out bully them in the first half. He included himself in that. He only managed 3 shots and 1 bucket in the first 20 minutes against a Memphis defense that seemed to have figured out how to take the All-American out of the Zags offensive scheme. And then he proceeded to lead by example in the second half, scoring the first 5 Gonzaga buckets in the first 5 minutes en route to 21 second half points. Got to give credit to head coach Mark Few. Tweaked his game plan to get his best player good looks earlier in the offense and in more actions than just standard post-ups, because as Few said, Timmy's not a true, standard back to the basket post-up guy. He gets a lot of them on the moves and in other actions, and they kind of moved more towards doing that, got a little more creative, and it kind of worked out. Here's the thing about Holmgren and why I say his performance is disconcerting. He scored in single digits in 3 of his last 5 games. In the regular season, he had scored fewer than 10 points just 3 times. 2 of those recent games came against St. Mary's in the conference tournament, and the third was against Memphis. Those teams have big, physical, active front court players who can match up with him. But Holmgren's got to, be better about going after and getting his shots. Something he should be able to do against Arkansas, because they only have one player, 6'10" sophomore Jalen Williams, who went for 10 and 15 and then went over to New Mexico State, who can be classified as a big. And head coach Eric Musselman's going to have to pick his poison in terms of who has Williams attempt to defend Timmy or Holmgren. I fully expect Arkansas to give Gonzaga a full 40-minute test, but as long as Timmy is Timmy, Holmgren has a game closer to what he did against Georgia State. Nembhard does his thing. He's going to have the responsibility of trying to contain Razorback senior point guard J.D. Notae, no small task. And guys like Bolton and Julian Strother knocked down their 4+3 attempts from 3 at their usual 47 and 37% efficiency. And glue guy Watson chips in everywhere off the bench like he usually does. And it's going to be no surprise when the overall number 1 seed advances to the Elite 8 to face Duke or Texas Tech, 2 teams they've already gone up against this season. And I got a feeling whichever one of them they face second time around, lost to Duke, beat Texas Tech, their opponent's going to see a slightly different, slightly more annoyed Gonzaga team with a bit of a chip on its shoulder.
Especially because of the fact that in a regular season game in November, Chet Holmgren did not come anywhere near outplaying Paolo Banchero.
Nope.
So, by the way, Anthony, we've not done some nice things to the Big Ten tonight, but the SEC is down to one singular team in the tournament, and it's this team, a team that we're a little surprised has made it this far. Arkansas is scheduled to lose twice, according to a lot of brackets.
Yeah, you know what? If you watched a lot of the pre-tournament, the tournament preview specials, regardless of what channel network you're watching, Arkansas was the sexy pick to get upset. I mean, there were a lot of analysts, and I even picked on one of my brackets. I even picked for mine to pull the upset in the 13-4 matchup. But you know what? Arkansas has been a tale of 2 different teams winning 2 different ways. They survived an upset 75-71 against Vermont in a game that, if you watch, probably set basketball back about 50 years on offense. They beat New Mexico State 53-48. Now, Gene Hackman of Hoosiers fame would have loved this, but if you was a basketball purist, it was hard to watch. But J.D. Notae, as Jay just mentioned, led the way with 18 points. Arkansas shot 28% from the field in this game, but they had a 12-ball advantage in transition points and went 22 for 25 from the charity stripe. Now, here's the thing. Arkansas won that game with the lowest tally ever for an SEC team that won an NCAA tournament game. Arkansas, they're 17-3 in the last 20 games, however, which is a surprise, which is also surprising when you think about how many teams looked at Arkansas's inability to score and thought, you know what, upset in the making. But they're great on defense. Eric Musselman, maybe it's the NBA days of guarding guys like Kobe Bryant and the Vince Carters of the world every once in a while that he's kind of passed along to his team as a coach. But they held the highest scoring team in the WAC conference of 48 points. And it was a really hard game to watch. But I'll do say, Tony, I'm not even sure if I got that first name correct. I've been trying to practice all night, couldn't get it down. But he was tasked with slowing down Teddy Allen, who almost hit 40 in the opening game, and held him to 12 points on 5 of 16 field goal attempts, which he harassed him all night. It made life miserable for Allen. And, he took away his floor space. He had a tough night. Jalen Williams also had 14 defensive stops. No Tate snuffed out 12 Aggie scored opportunities around the basket. I mean, you look at the fact that the Razorbacks is a team that led the nation in both free throw attempts and free throws made. They know they can't shoot one for them, but they know how to score points in spite of that. And they rely a lot on their defense. But against Gonzaga, they're going to have to do something for us to offense. They got to be a little more creative. They've got to move the ball around. They're going to have to knock down shots. I mean, I don't think they have the defense going to be able to hold Timmy down forever, even if he gets off to a slow start. So it's going to be very interesting to see against the number one seed in the region, what are they going to do to score points? I mean, maybe they could try to create some turnovers to kind of get out of the transition game, maybe push the tempo a little bit. But it is going to be a very tall order. You're not going to win too many games shooting under 30%. Under any circumstances. I think Arkansas really just got lucky more than good and against New Mexico State. Vermont, they just made a lot of big plays down the stretch. They haven't played a complete game just yet, and they're going to need one against Gonzaga.
I think I fell asleep a couple of times during an Arkansas game. I'm not 100% sure. That team is pretty nice.
That was.
I don't think Gonzaga is going to be.
It was really bad.
I don't think Gonzaga is going to deal with that type of action. Arkansas is going to have to score and score.
Gonzaga can score 48 points and a half, but alone a game. I mean,
Arkansas
has a lot. Yeah, they have a lot to think about this weekend.
All right, we were contractually obligated, since he's still in the tournament, to mention Mike Krzyzewski. So here we go. And their matchup against Texas Tech is a very interesting one. It's basically a pick 'em in a lot of different gambling spots, or Duke is a 1-point favorite. It's very simple. Duke, they love to score. They've done a decent amount of that in the tournament. Won their first game pretty easily. Went tete-a-tete against Michigan State, but when you have someone like Paolo Banchero, who is just averaging 17, 7.9, and 3.2 this year, who at times has looked like the number 1 or 2 draft pick, which he's going to be, and at times has disappeared because he has a lot of other people on the floor he could pass it to, like Wendell Moore Jr., a 13.55 point player per game, Trevor Keels, who averages 11-4, Mark Williams, 11-7, and if he's healthy, another freshman in AJ Griffin, who averages 10.3 and 3.8. Duke is going to score a lot, but Texas Tech has been one of the most consistent teams in the country, and God, they've been consistent for so long now. You don't even know that their coach has changed from Chris Beard to Mark Adams. And if you know who Mark Adams is, it's not a generic coach name. It's a nice little name from the South who moved over to Texas Tech and kept their field goal defense and scoring defense around. And then Anthony would be proud of this. 97 points in the first round against Montana State. And then Anthony would have to see that they played a 59-53 game against Notre Dame, which also set offense back about another 40 years. There's been a lot of games in this tournament that has done that. Texas Tech only knows how to really win one way, though. They're going to win with their defense. They have a rebounding edge against almost everybody left. They are 7th nationally in scoring defense. There's only one team who's better with who's left in the tournament. They have a rebounding machine in Kevin Obenor, who was playing with Oral Roberts last year. And they have a guy who has 28 blocks this year in Marcos Santos Silva. They shut down Notre Dame late. They've been to the Sweet 16 3 out of the last 4 times. And as an added bonus, if Duke loses, we never have to see Coach K's face again on a sideline. Will the retirement tour end here? Will we see one more Duke Gonzaga matchup? I don't think Texas Tech wants that. And I think you're going to see a game that has to come down to the final possession because there's no other way Texas Tech would play. This is either going to be a 75-68 win for Duke, or this is going to be that same 59-58 game that I just described that Texas Tech will win and continue to ugly their way to the Elite Eight.
And look, between Texas Tech and Arkansas, it's almost like watching the old New Jersey Devil teams led by Jacques Lemire with their neutral zone trap, and they purposely slow the game down, so it's like 1-0 for like 3 periods and like 2 games straight. I mean, like I said, we see some great offensive performance individually in these tournaments, but we have seen some ugly shooting on top of it. I mean, it's been
there's more to come. Anthony, there's more to come with that.
Rabbi, I got to say, I didn't think it would happen, but I'm glad we got to see Krzyzewski against Izzo one last time. I was surprised that Michigan State was able to get past Davidson. Davidson was my mid-major team to make some noise, so I was kind of surprised by that. But, like we always say, when we're contractually obligated to say it, don't bet against Tom Izzo in March. It was nice to see those 2 legendary coaches get one last chance to go head-to-head.
Well, we move on to the South. And it's about as crazy as the East. One side of the coin has teams that seem to be more Indy San Antonio. So you have the 1 and the 2 of Arizona and Villanova. That's how they both got here. Villanova, very easy getting here. Arizona needed to survive overtime against TCU to get here. On the other hand, Houston and Michigan are also here. It's a little surprise for Houston given their injuries and a decent win against Illinois. Then there's Michigan, another team that J negative Nancy last week and was ready to bury and put the dirt on. And then their talents turned around, along with Juwan Howard's handshake actions going to hug a Tennessee player. What is that, a PR stunt? Jesus. All right, same questions. Anthony, who's not shocking to be over here?
Well, it's not shocking that that the Arizona Wildcats, the 1 seed, I actually talked about them on a show a couple of weeks ago, and the job that Tommy Lloyd has done in his first year as head coach. It's not a surprise that they're in the Sweet 16. The surprise of how they got there and how very close they were from not being there, I think is more the story. But TCU was literally this close from pulling off an upset and moving on to the Sweet 16. But then you look at in overtime, Christian Coloco, Key Dunn, a couple of big plays there. Projected NBA draft lottery, Benedict Mathurin led the way with 30 points. Arizona, coming back and win that game in overtime. I think we look at it like this. Arizona won that game just shooting 5 for 27 from threes. And against a TCU team that was 8-10 in the Big 12 conference. I think when I look at Tommy Lloyd, I think back to the Pac-12 championship game where they had a rally from 12 down to beat UCLA. What I think the biggest change in this Wildcat team has been the resolve. I mean, and the fact that they have faced some adversity, unlike some of the other top teams in the tournament. But Arizona has been able to bounce back and kind of build a lot of character along the way, and they've really come through in some key moments. So I think that has been one of the best things about the coaching job that Tommy Lloyd has done this year. Well, they're a very versatile team. They show the ball better just as much as anyone. Assist on 65% of field goals made during the season. And also, they can run. They're the second biggest team in the country. They can run. They're a very versatile unit. But when I look at the come from behind win against TCU and obviously going back to the Pac-12 conference, it has been their ability to overcome adversity. Now, what's going to happen in the rest of the tournament? Who knows? But they're shown that they are battle tested, and they can they could come through in big and in close games. In the opening game against Rice State, they pulled away early, and the score really was the indicator of how dominant they played. I feel like Arizona still have a real full 40 minutes of basketball that they can play that's complete, and why they were a team that many people expected or actually thought could give Baylor a run had those two teams met in the national championship game. Of course, Baylor bowing out over the weekend, that's not going to happen, but Arizona definitely hold up their end of the bargain, and we'll see what's going to happen next, because right now, if you ask me if you want to reseed the teams, Arizona to me would be the overall 1 seed, and maybe the overall favorite to get to the championship game. But of course, we've seen still playing basketball left, so like I said, we'll see what happens.
I'm not really sure about that overall number 1 seed, but to each his own.
If you was to
And I'm glad
reseed the teams,
I'm glad we're talking about. And I'm glad we're talking about Benedict Mathurin in the sense of what he's doing on the court rather than some stupid viral video. Anyway, Jay, back to your negative Nancy-ness. Let's go on and defend your Michigan boys. They really realized their potential this week and really got themselves to another Sweet 16 appearance.
Yeah, color me about as pleasantly surprised as I thought I could be. When I heard that senior point guard Devontae Jones was going to miss the 11th-seeded Wolverines opening round game against 6th-seeded Colorado State due to entering concussion protocol, I didn't think Michigan would advance. He's such a big part of what makes that team go. And yet they did, as freshman Frankie Collins stepped into Jones's shoes and did a solid job. 14 points, 6 rebounds, only 1 turnover. I mean, granted, it helped that Hunter Dickinson and Eli Brooks played their usual A games. Dickinson had 21 points, 6 boards, and 4 blocks, while Brooks put up 16.7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. Then came their round 2 game against 3rd-seeded Tennessee, and I didn't see how the Wolverines could get past this SEC powerhouse, especially since, once again, Jones wasn't really available. He played some minutes in the first half, then just couldn't continue. He just wasn't right. But then Dickinson just went off, and he ate the Vols alive, going for 27 points, 9 of 14 from the floor, 8 of 10 from the stripe, 3 for 5 from beyond the arc, along with 11 rebounds and 4 assists. And he got an assist from, speaking of assists, he got one from Brooks, who chipped in 23 points and 5 dimes. Michigan held Tennessee to 41.8% from the floor, 11.1% from beyond the arc. Ball shot 2 of 18. And only allowed them 12 trips to the line. And despite losing the turnover battle, the points off turnover battle, fast break points, and points in the paint, all by decent margins, and allowing the Vols to take 13 more shots than they did, they somehow found a way to come from 5 down at the half and outscore the Vols by 13 in the second 20 minutes, largely due to a 14-6 run in the final 4 minutes, to come away with the win. They had some careless turnovers in that game. Not really a surprise from a team that's ranked 337th in the nation in turnover percentage. They gave up too many offensive rebounds and struggled to convert some easy shots at the rim. Not an issue you want to have facing a defense that is holding opponents to 39.8% in Villanova. They'll need to improve in these areas against a veteran Jay Wright squad, but any questions about whether Michigan belonged in this tournament, and to be honest, I had some of those questions myself, they seem to have all been answered. Several Big Ten teams had better resumes coming into the Big Dance. Iowa, who was a trendy Final Four pick by several college basketball analysts, including yours truly. Wisconsin, the Big Ten regular season co-champ. And Illinois, who was the other regular season co-champ. But of the 9 bids the conference got, only Michigan and the mentioned Purdue Boilermakers remain. Michigan's 17-14 regular season and Big Ten tournament may have been exercises in inconsistency, but this Michigan team, led by Dickinson, who Villanova has no matchup for, as Jay Wright has no one in his very short rotation who stands taller than 6'8", and Brooks, who, they now look like the team we had such high expectations for before the season began. That team was expected to do exactly what they've done so far once the NCAA tournament started. Let's see if they can keep it going against Colin Gillespie and the rest of the Wildcats.
I said this to you before, and you actually texted me and says you might want to rethink your pick for the Colorado State game when you saw the point guard injury. I just think this Michigan team is way too talented to be 17-14. They were a preseason top 5 team, and sometimes you realize that potential. All right. Yeah. I want to say, I can't say enough about it. I'm picking Arizona Houston this fight game to watch. I think both games are pretty similar in my view, although for some reason Arizona is only a 2-point favorite against Houston on Thursday night. Mathurin, what he did at the end of that TCU game was incredible. It was only his 3rd career 30-point game, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and he became the 6th Arizona player with a 30-point game since Derek Williams in 2011, which shows how long it's been since Arizona has really been in a good position. However, and I also have to say, if you haven't seen Christian Coloco, who is a beast at center for Arizona, enjoy. He is a 12-7-3 guy, and he has 10 double-doubles this year, 3 straight, and he had a 28-12 game against TCU. If those two could do what they did against Houston, they'll probably win. But Kyler Edwards has done a damn good job in this tournament. He scored 15 points in 3 of his last 4 games. You have Taze Moore, and you have a Houston team who is just quietly back in the Sweet 16 again for the 3rd consecutive tournament in a row. I wanted to say year, but we have to continuously remember that there was no tournament at 2020. Houston is a Final Four team from last year, and a lot of people also gave up on Houston just because of the fact that they were so undermanned in this tournament. And now we're realizing why we don't sleep on Kelvin Sampson in March, ironically enough, maybe possibly taking the mantle from Tom Izzo. Just take away Kelvin Sampson's phone and he'll be okay. But I have to say, this team is shockingly back in this position again. And when you have nothing to lose, and I think Houston has nothing to lose, and Arizona has a lot of the weight of the world on their shoulders, that's a very interesting matchup. It'll be the second matchup tomorrow in San Antonio. Enjoy. Finally, we move on to the final region, and that is the Midwest. And while Kansas and Providence were both conference regular season champions, yes, I'll say that again, Providence was a conference regular season champion, that double-digit seed matchup between Miami and Iowa State just doesn't seem right to me. The Hurricanes and Cyclones in the Windy City. And I don't want to say that this is my thing. It was actually a pun that sideline reporter Tracy Wolfson said on the sideline after Miami's win on Sunday. And then the person who should normally be saying that, Jim Nance, was so proud, like he was a father telling his daughter that you finally have actually listened to me and made the pun that I was always going to make for my entire life. He was like longingly looking. This is a guy who really wants to get paid Joe Buckner. Anyway, Jay, let's talk about the Jayhawks in this week.
There we go. I mean, obviously, we're not surprised they're here. I mean, they are the least talked about #1 seed. But as I said, both on our bracketology show and our bracket breakdown show, that's probably how Bell Self likes it. But that may change based on how this region is shaping up. Kansas had 0 problems with Texas Southern. They were up 47-19 at the half and basically coasted to an 83-56 win. They had 5 players in double figures, led by Remy Martin's 15 in 21 minutes off the bench. Their defense held the Tigers to 32.8% from the floor, 21.4% from 3. They own the boards, plus 10 overall, plus 4 on the offensive glass. Their 11 offensive rebounds led to 15 second chance points. They got assists on 59% of their 34 made field goals, and they outscored the Tigers 40-24 in the paint, 23-6 on the break. I was a little surprised that Creighton narrowly got by San Diego State, but that's how 8-9 games are supposed to go. Should be a close one. The Blue Jays kept things close against the Jayhawks, thanks to 42.9% shooting from beyond the arc. They went 12 of 28, and 21 trips to the line, which they converted at an 85% clip. They also capitalized on turnovers, converting the mere 7 that the Jayhawks committed into 15 points. But Kansas once again had a balanced attack, 4 players in double figures, led again by Remy Martin, who had 20 off the bench in 29 minutes. He also chipped in 7 boards and 4 assists and was crucial down the stretch to help Kansas put the game away. Jayhawks dominated once again on the glass, 47-31 overall, 13-6 on the O board line. Outscored Creighton 32-14 in the paint, 19-10 on the break, 16-8 on second chance points. They managed all this offensive output despite not getting much from senior big man David McCormick. 9 points and 7 boards against Texas Southern and 7 and 6 against Creighton, and less than the usual stellar performances from Big 12 Player of the Year, Ochai Agbaji. Sorry, I pronounced it right the last time. Dang it.
You were close. You were close.
Who's only shooting 35.7% from the floor and only averaging 13 points per game, which are well below the 47.7% field goal shooting and 19.7 points per game he was averaging coming into the NCAAs. Kansas has gotten solid contributions from Christian Braun, 13.5 points, 6.5 boards, 4 assists, 47.6 from the floor, 5 of 7 from downtown. Jalen Wilson chipped in a 14 and 14 double-double in the win over Creighton. DeJuan Harris chipped in 12 points, 3 assists, and 2 steals against Texas Southern. But the real story, which I kind of alluded to earlier, for Kansas has been Remy Martin. By now, we all know the story. 6-foot super senior transfer from Arizona State, was the Big 12's preseason player of the year, suffered a deep bone bruise in his right knee during the December 29th win over Nevada. Tried to play through it, eventually sat out 7 straight games in February, hoping it would heal. Took a few games for Martin to get going when he came back, but then he really got going. Had a combined 22 points and 7 dimes in the Big 12 tournament semis and finals, and he's the Jayhawks' leading scorer through the first 2 games of the NCAA tournament. 17.5 points per game and only 25 minutes per game, with a shooting slash line of 59.1 from the floor, 50% from beyond the arc, and 85.7 at the stripe, averaging 4 boards and 4 dimes per game. He's been the difference, and as Bill Self said after the win over Creighton, quote, "We're a different team with him." Martin may be the missing piece that propels Kansas to the Final Four if they can get past this weekend. Look, I have a lot of respect for what Providence has accomplished this season, but one of your top stats is being number 1 in Ken Palm's luck metric due to an 11-2 record in games decided by 5 points or fewer and 3-0 in overtime games. That doesn't bode well against Kansas, especially when the Jayhawks own the edge in just about every other stat, standard and advanced, with effective field goal percentage being the one where that edge is most glaring. Jayhawks are 27th in the nation. Friars are 149th. I don't see Providence stopping Kansas's march to New Orleans, especially with the number 5 seed Iowa gone, having gotten bounced in the first round by 12-seeded Richmond. The road's more open, especially with both, as Rabbi said in the intro, number 2 Auburn and number 3 Wisconsin getting upset. No disrespect to number 10 Miami, who I definitely underrated, but who definitely took advantage of Auburn's backcourt, which shot the Tigers in the foot and out of the tournament, as KD Johnson, Alan Flanagan, and Wendell Green Jr. went 10 for 31 from the floor and 2 for 12 from 3. Jabari Smith didn't have a great game either, 3 of 16. Or number 11, Iowa State, who is a bit of a surprise, but they took advantage of Johnny Davis having a bad night for the Badgers with only 17 points on 4 of 16 from the floor and 0 of 7 from 3 to come out of that rock fight with the win. But honestly, I don't think either has enough firepower to stop the Jayhawks, especially if McCormick shows up and if Agbaji shows out.
I will have to say this, though. There's nothing to lose for anybody else in this region.
Nope.
All the pressure is
all
on
playing without
Kansas.
money.
And we've seen a lot of Kansas upsets in this tournament. Anthony, may I interest you in a team with a 7-11 conference record? Yes, 7-11 conference record as a team that is surprisingly in this setting in Chicago in the Sweet 16. Let's talk about Iowa State.
Yeah, you know what? Regardless of what happens with Iowa State, and by the way, I kind of have to give a shout out to the University of Miami because a friend of mine, she is a alum there, and I just obviously came from South Beach and spent some time with some locals who were huge Miami Hurricane fans. But that besides the point. Regardless of what happened with Iowa State, considering what they were just literally a year ago, Two wins. None after December 20th of 2020. 18 straight losses to close out the program's both seasons since 1925. And head coach TJ Ozenberger being able to get that program from where it was a year ago to the Sweet 16, it's been nothing short of phenomenal, to say the least. The 11th seed is Cyclones. They beat Wisconsin 54-49 in front of a very Iowa State heavy crowd in Milwaukee. They became the lowest winning percentage, the team with the lowest winning percentage from the previous year to win an NCAA tournament game when they beat LSU in the opening round. And then they're led by Gabe Kalsher, who has been a star for the team in the first two games. Game high 22 points against Wisconsin, but they did it with the defense too. I mean, they held Wisconsin to season low points, field goal rate 29%, only 2 made 3-pointers, and 9% behind the 3-point arc. So I would say it's allowed 103 points total in the first two games. But to see Kasha company held Johnny Davis, who was a Big Ten Player of the Year, and a win award contender to 17 points on 4-16 shooting. So so I would say it's been a great story, and it wouldn't be a surprise if they did make it to the Elite Eight, and it wouldn't have been upset because it would really had two lower seed teams going at each other. But if they could get to the Elite Eight and just be added to an already really either way, it's been a successful season for Iowa State. It would be great to see if they can get to the Final Four out of this conference. Out of this region. But considering where they've been in the turnaround, I think it's a great Cinderella story that we've had outside of St. Peter's, and it should be a good matchup between them and Roosevelt, Miami.
Let me say this: both Iowa State and Miami have a Kansas grad on their team. Have a Kansas transfer on the team. Tristan Anaruda for Iowa State, who was at Kansas from 2019 to 2021, and Charlie Moore, who is a 6th-year redshirt senior who spent 2 seasons at Kansas from 2017 to 2019. He's going to have his AARP card apparently while he's in Miami. Although Anthony would know, if you're going to live anywhere with your AARP card, go to Miami for that sake. It's so beautiful there. Okay. Very quickly, Providence in Kansas is, I believe, I think it's the first game on Friday night in Chicago. And I'm not picking 2 double-digit seeds to play against each other. You keep doubting the Fridays. They've only lost 4 times since December, and the Big East is not a small conference. They're pretty damn good. So, and yes, Providence did get a lucky break getting the combination of South Dakota State and Richmond in their first 2 games. Providence could have easily had a much tougher matchup in that round against Iowa, but they stayed away from that. They held the top 3 South Dakota State. They held that top 3 point shooting team in the nation to 30% accuracy from deep. They're 33rd in the nation this year, holding foes to a 30.3 3-point accuracy percentage. Richmond only went 1 for 22 in that game, in that second round game, which was pretty much over when the ball was tipped. It was 79-51 for God's sakes. And Providence went 12 of 22 behind the arc in that game. The way Kansas played Creighton and the way Creighton kind of kept it pretty close, they only won by 7. The line for this game is 8, and Creighton was missing 2 of their top players in this game. Kansas can easily cover this game, but I don't know, Jay. I know Providence has been lucky this year. They're actually number 44 in the final 10 power rankings before the tournament, but they were forced because of that gaudy 28-5 record. But they won the regular season title. They're here in the Sweet 16, and if there's any team that can make some noise against Kansas, it's this one. And again, there's just something funny about this region. I remember a while ago, I don't remember, I think it was 2016, when Virginia was a overwhelming number one with 3 shoddy teams, and they lost to an 11 seed Syracuse eventually in the Elite Eight. I don't know. Kansas just seems like way too much of a lock here, and it just doesn't seem right. I don't know. This is going to be this could be more interesting of a region than we think. I know we really called it boring last week, but who knows?
But the reason why Kansas looks, I think part of the reason why Kansas looks potentially too good to be true is because they're going up against a 4 seed that a lot of people think was overseeded, and against 2 double-digit seeds in the bottom half of the bracket. So it looks too good to be true because there have been so many ridiculous upsets in this tournament that none of us saw coming. So you keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I think Kansas, by the mere fact that they've done what they've done without 2 of their guys, 2 of their better guys, 2 guys that they count on underperforming, says something to me about this team. So I'm willing to give them more than just the benefit of the doubt.
Oh yeah, I understand that completely. By the way, what's one of the biggest tropes when we assume underperforming players in the tournament are going to eventually perform? A lot of times when we say that, it doesn't happen. All right, I'm going to move on now to the NFL, who seemed to make a lot of moves. And almost every one of them happened when the tournament was at a peak. Tom Brady's retirement came seconds after Selection Sunday. Tom Brady's unretirement came seconds after Selection Sunday, and seconds after Anthony touchdown on the ground in Miami, to DeShaun Watson getting traded literally in the middle of the first round Friday at 3:30 p.m. When did the NFL become the NBA and just make moves for the sake of effing over another sport? Jesus. But now let's get to 3 moves, which in the last 12 hours has changed again, that truly did make a difference in this wild free agency period. Let's get to one that actually happened last week. Anthony, let's start with new money. Anthony, let's start with the guy who for 6 days had the best average salary of a wide receiver in the NFL in history, Davante Adams.
Yeah, you know what's funny
It was
about
5 days, actually. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was about time, and this trade took place in the middle of the first 4. I mean, if you think about this, it was the second night of the first 4 tournament, the first 4 games in the NCAA tournament when this trade went down.
It was actually the Thursday. It was the first round of the tournament.
It's the first round. I mean, the NFL is what we talked about, how the NFL just seemingly rules everything, and it actually bled into March Madness. But in this case, I look at this trade, and this was a case of Davante Adams basically quietly stewing over his contract situation, where the team he plays on is doing everything in their power to appease a quarterback who they're not even sure from year to year if he's going to be committed to coming back. They tried to put him on a franchise tag. He wasn't buying it, and he asked for a trade, and they traded him to the Las Vegas Raiders, but he gets to reunite with Derek Carr, a guy he played with at Fresno State. So obviously there's a connection there. Now, for those who think Aaron Rodgers is going to make another guy famously, tell somebody to tell Davante Adams, keep this in mind. He targeted Adams 232 times over the last 2 years. Clearly, Rodgers has an issue when it comes to breaking the young receivers. And if you watch that San Francisco 49er game, outside of Davante Adams, there wasn't really anybody that Aaron Rodgers felt comfortable throwing the football to as the game wore on. But Adams is coming off a year where he set franchise records in catches, receiving yards, and became the 6th player in NFL history with 120 plus catches, on top of 1,500 plus yards and 11 touchdowns in the same season. Now he gets a 5-year, $142 million extension, $67.5 million guaranteed to stay with Las Vegas, and he's got a good quarterback to throw the ball to. And the Raiders are a team that just coming off a playoff appearance, but only the second time and since their Super Bowl appearance. So Davante Adams definitely got the better end of this. Got what he wanted. He got his money. He got his contract. But he's moving on to a team that is on the rise. I think this is a situation where you look at it. The Green Bay Packers really dropped the ball on this one. Yes, they're going to get a callback for his picks, and they can kind of fix other needs, even probably draft a few wide receivers in the draft. But when you look at it, where you go out of your way to appease your star quarterback, but you can't keep his favorite target happy. I think that's a third opportunity on the organization. And remember that last dance photo that both of them tweeted together a few months ago. It's like a distant memory at this point. And you have to wonder, though. I mean, how much does Aaron Rodgers, in a situation, sitting around and waiting to see what he's going to do, playing a part of Davante Adams, maybe just being over it and ready to move on. But the Raiders definitely got a good wide receiver and finally got Derek Carr a number one wideout. If you compare him with a healthy Darren Waller, you got two very good targets for Carr to throw the ball to, who's coming off a career high and passing yards as it is. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Raiders can do, maybe to solidify the rest of that offense. But Davante Adams is a great start for this team.
I think when we look back at it, I really want to know what made Davante Adams lose. Was it Aaron? Because it seems like from all reports, the Packers were ready to give Davante the money. Was it Davante just tired of Aaron Rodgers? Was it the actual reason that Davante Adams said in the press conference that he wanted to go back to California? Was it the first opportunity to play with his college teammate, Derek Carr? Nobody knows, but I honestly think that's the most interesting part of this angle to me, and something that we'll see going on, because that determines to me what we'll actually expect with the Packers in 2022 and how much this A-Rod contract really affected this team.
Yeah, and I have to put this out there, okay? Aaron Rodgers got his money that has nothing to do with Davante Adams' contract situation. However, we don't know what the relationship was between these two guys.
We don't. But that's my point.
That's one of the question marks. The questions.
That's one of my points there, because again, it doesn't seem like this move, as of at least this moment, was not about money. Jay, apparently for the Falcons, it wasn't about money, because they're willing to take a $41 million cap hit to start their franchise over again, and Matt Ryan ends up in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I got to tell you though, in regards to the relationship between Derek Carr and Davante Adams going back to their days at Fresno State, that is legit. They are very close friends, and they know, and they put up some monster video game level numbers when they ran together for 2 years. So AFC West should be put on notice. Speaking of Matt, and talk about Matt Ryan. I'm really not surprised the Falcons finally ended his era after 14 years. They do need to rebuild, and keeping Ryan in his contract was not practical, especially once they lost out on acquiring DeShaun Watson. And unlike the disintegration of the relationship between Baker Mayfield and the Browns, there isn't that type of is not what happened between Matt Ryan and Atlanta. By all reports, the organization and their franchise quarterback parted on very amicable terms. But I got to say, I really like this move. Colts are a great landing spot for him, and he should give them the kind of quarterback play they haven't had pretty much since Andrew Luck unexpectedly retired. All right, so what are they getting in the 37-year-old Ryan? Guy can still make all the necessary throws, and even if he's lost a couple of miles per hour off his fastball, he's still perfectly able to get the ball where it needs to go and get it there on time and on target. His 78.1% on target rate last year was a career high. He gives the Colts potential for big plays downfield, which should pair nicely with the Jonathan Taylor-powered running game. You throw in Ryan's high football IQ, and it gives the Colts a dimension they felt was lacking pretty much since Peyton Manning, who has been something of a mentor to Ryan, left Indy, and especially last season, if what we're hearing from the Colts facility is to be believed. Ryan has been praised throughout his career for his pre-snap recognition and command of a playbook. Former NFL tight end Jacob Tam, who played with both Manning in Indy and Ryan in Atlanta, once compared Ryan's preparation to that of Manning's, and that's no small compliment, guys. Ryan also has 42 game-winning drives. I mean, you got to believe that was something the Colts were very much aware of when they were looking at making this move, considering they went 2-5 in one-score games in 2021. Indy knows it has to be better in the fourth quarter if they're going to challenge for the AFC South. Look, we're not going to see the Matt Ryan, who is the NFL MVP in 2016, but the Colts, with them, he'll play behind a much better offensive line than he had in Atlanta over the last few years. He also has an offensive-minded head coach in Frank Reich who knows how to cater his game planning, play calling, and overall scheme to a veteran quarterback like Ryan. Skill set and scheme fit aside, the big thing that the Colts are getting here is a guy who should excel as a locker room leader and be a strong, stabilizing presence despite the years of quarterback turnover. That's another thing the team didn't feel like it had last season with the previous incumbent. Ryan is coming off a season where he completed 67% of his passes, averaged 7.1 yards per attempt, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks, and a 90.4 passer rating. He ranked 24th in True Media's expected points added per play metric, and he was 21st in Football Outsiders' DVOA metric. Having said that, Ryan was in one of the worst situations for any quarterback in the NFL last year. Falcons ranked 31st in rushing efficiency, 26th in pass block win rate, and 32nd in pressure rate allowed. The Falcons' leading receivers, rookie tight end Kyle Pitts, wide receiver Russell Gage, and Cordarrelle Patterson, who was transitioning from wide receiver to running back. In Indianapolis, Ryan's going to be leading an offense that ranked second in rushing efficiency behind Taylor, who led the NFL in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and rushing yards per game last season. Colts' offensive line was better than Atlanta's in terms of pass protection, but Indianapolis was more mediocre than great, ranking only 20th in pass block win rate and 23rd in pressure rate allowed. Having said that, Ryan's pocket presence should help the offensive line more than Wentz did. Colts still need to get Ryan another weapon on the perimeter, as right now the only legitimate wide receiver they have at the moment is Michael Pittman Jr. T.Y. Hilton's a free agent, and no one really quite knows what he's thinking. Cryptic tweets much, T.Y. But with what Ryan brings to the Colts, both on and off the field, this franchise definitely improved greatly at the NFL's most important position.
Okay, so Von Miller went to Buffalo. Great defensive move. Great move. Chandler Jones went for some reason to Las Vegas. J.C. Jackson and Khalil Mack both ended up in Los Angeles with the Chargers. And for some reason, Malcolm Butler, who I thought the Patriots hated after Super Bowl 52, went back to the Patriots. And I was going to talk about all of those defensive moves, but
then
Tyreek Hill happened today. As everything was just quiet.
5 hours ago, Rabbi?
11 o'clock this morning, we hear of news that Chiefs have stalled with negotiations with Tyreek Hill, so they will immediately seek a trade for Tyreek Hill. Not in a moment, immediately. 30 minutes later, they just learned that of all teams, New York Jets and Miami Dolphins were both finalists for Tyreek Hill in a possible trade. And then it was learned 30 minutes later that Tyreek Hill is now a Miami Dolphin. I don't understand this world at all. Tyreek Hill not only signed an extension that made him top Devontae Adams' 6-day-old signing for highest average salary, although he doesn't get the full thing guaranteed. He only gets 4 years, $120 million, just a tad over $72 million guaranteed, and $52 million is a signing bonus. So it's $120 million of new money. And even though it was reported that the Jets had an offer that seemed to be better than the Dolphins, Hill went to Miami. It was a deal that is going to cost the Dolphins five draft picks, a first this year, a second this year, a fourth this year, and a fourth and a sixth in 2023. And although it's just shocking to see the Kansas City triumvirate of Tyreek Hill, of Hill and Kelsey go bye-bye in just one move. And Jay, I love Juju Smith-Schuster as everybody else, but we know Juju Smith-Schuster is
it's not the
not.
same. No,
We know Juju Smith-Schuster is not Tyreek Hill. With all that being said, Tyreek Hill is going to be a number one superstar. He goes to a very good offense in Miami, by the way, where you have Jalen Waddle, former top 10 offense. Let me finish. Former top 10 pick in Devontae Parker as a number 3 option, and Mike Gesicki as your tight end. The weapons are great. The quarterback is Tua Tagovailoa, who was almost ran out of town last year for the possibility of DeShaun Watson or basically anybody else, because of the fact that the person could not go over 15 yards in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what's going on here, but I know Tyreek Hill just made a big gamble on himself because he goes from a team that was probably still the favorites to win the AFC this year, if not the second pick against Buffalo, to a team that is going to be picked third and is still favored to be third in the AFC East. Hill wanted the money. Hill got the money. It just boggles my mind. It's a good move for the NFL, but for Tyreek Hill,
no, it's not a good move for the NFL.
I think it's a great move for the NFL because parity needs to continue. And I think the Chiefs just got knocked out a big amount of time. Whoa. We don't want to see a super team out there. And now the Kansas City Chiefs have to work out what to do with Tyreek Hill's role.
I'm going to refute this argument in multiple ways. Okay, first off, I mean, here, I'm going to, Hill, Tyreek Hill, you may have bet on yourself, but I'll tell you what, dude, I hope you enjoy the paycheck because that's the only thing you're going to enjoy going from having Patrick Mahomes throwing to you to Tagovailoa struggling to throw to you. As far as Juju Smith-Schuster goes, Rabbi, no, that's not a
I never said he was a replacement in any way, shape, or form.
But here's the thing, though. And this is the other reason why I don't get Tyreek making this move, because they brought Smith-Schuster on board to essentially be the slot guy to open things up even more for Hill and Kelsey. That was that deal that might have made Kansas City have to work less hard if they had been able to keep Hill. And I honestly do not get this move whatsoever by Tyreek Hill, because as you said, yeah, he's going to get paid, but that's all that happened here. And honestly, I don't think even if he had stayed in KC and they had taken Juju Smith-Schuster, I still think the Chiefs would have had to work would have had to work very hard because the other teams in their division all improved this offseason.
Absolutely.
So, adding Juju was just, everybody else behind us improved. We need another weapon at bare minimum so we can, have some, to somehow, at least start the season as the team to beat. But now Hill leaving, I mean, Tyreek, really, your stats are going to drop. You're not going to make the playoffs. So forget about, hunting for another ring. All you're going to get is the dollars and no income tax because you're in Florida. I hope that, I hope you enjoy that because playing football down there for you is no longer going to be fun.
And look, Stephon Diggs has been tweeting pretty much as all of us right now. When he tweeted out the hell's going on.
Exactly.
Over this afternoon.
By the way, I didn't say that I think Tyreek Hill is. I don't know, and I think one of the more interesting things of this whole thing is we have a good wide receiver draft here. There is you're not going to find another Tyreek Hill in this draft, but if you can get that production out of somebody even 3/4 of what Tyreek Hill, and make no mistake about it, Kelsey makes that team go. Hill is the distraction of Kelsey, not the other way around.
No,
if you can find, this is going to be very interesting because if you can find somebody to replace that production in the draft, or even as like an unrestricted free agent of acquired taste, this might value the wide receiver position in a totally different way. I hope so.
Here's the other thing, Rabbi. Remember, Juju Smith-Schuster was initially signed to be the slot guy. But remember, Juju spent most of his career in Pittsburgh being the outside guy who took the top off defenses. So now with Hill gone, it's highly likely that Juju's going to slide over to the outside receiver position, and Kansas City will look to find a new slot receiver. Jamison Crowder is available, guys, if you're interested, to do it that way. So that'll be interesting to see if they elect to replace Hill with a slot guy and keep Juju on the outside, or replace him with an outside guy and keep Juju in the slot. It's going to be very interesting to see which way they go in their attempt to replace that production or that potential production.
Well, Cole Beasley is also available, but we don't really want to talk about him. Speaking of white guys who are overprivileged, let's talk about Baker Mayfield. Mayfield is about to be out of Cleveland. They basically picked up his replacement in free agency and then gave him a backup into Jacoby Brissett one day later. Mayfield wanted to go to Indianapolis. Indianapolis said, no, thank you. Mayfield possibly wanted to go to Atlanta. Atlanta said, no, thank you. We'll sign Marcus Mariota instead. The man might have a very bleak future, Anthony. What's next for the guy who better lose all of his goddamn progressive commercials in 2022? Please.
Yeah, I'm going to really miss the progressive commercials and Baker Mayfield treating everybody to his home, which was Cleveland Stadium. But the Cleveland Browns, we talked about earlier how they completely kind of screwed up the whole DeShaun Watson situation. Well, what about the guy who was literally your quarterback and you literally up until a week and a half ago was committed to? Think about this. Before Baker Mayfield's first start, the Cleveland Browns went 635 days between victories, and Baker Mayfield won his first start on national television. And remember the punchline of the Cleveland Browns and Bud Light having this campaign that if they won a game, that they will give out free beer and all this other crap. Well, Baker Mayfield almost immediately overnight endeared himself to Cleveland and vice versa. They told them around how Mayfield finished second for Offensive Rookie of the Year behind Saquon Barkley. And then after having a down year in 2019, 2020 had his best season. He was a top 10 quarterback with QBR, led the Browns to the playoffs and a playoff victory. You know, something that has been very real in Cleveland, Ohio, since they've been back in the league in 1999. And literally up to 2 weeks ago, the exit interview was great. The guy played through a whole season with a torn labrum in his shoulder, non-throwing shoulder, by the way. He played through it all season long, gritted it, toughed it out. The exit interview with Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, went well. And the Cleveland Browns even traded for Amari Cooper. So you're under the impression that, okay, they're going to get Baker Mayfield some help. And then here you go. The rumors come out that they may go after Russell Wilson. Then they talk, and then then the rumors about DeShaun Watson being part of that small group. But according to obviously I'm reading the report from ESPN's Chris Watson, what really ruined this relationship wasn't the fact that the Browns went after another quarterback, because that's the business in the NFL. Yep. The thing is, they didn't tell Baker Mayfield. He found out via social media after the organization had publicly committed to him and talked about he was going to be the quarterback moving forward. Now, obviously, the NFL is a what have you done for me lately league, and the acronyms of NFL is always, for me at least, it's always said not for long. So if long as you're productive, they keep you have a job. The moment you're not productive, well, you're looking for something else. And in Baker Mayfield's case, I think he was given a wrong deal. And look, granted, you can say what you want about Baker Mayfield, his maturity level, which is the irony in all this was that the Cleveland Browns wanted a mature adult at quarterback And look who they're bringing in, a guy who is facing not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, but 22 civil cases of sexual misconduct and misbehavior. On top of the fact that they gave him a guaranteed contract that is going to cripple that salary cap for years to come. So Baker Mayfield, like I said, say what you will about his attitude, the moxie, the bravado, but at the end of the day, and someone brought this up to me. Remember the crap he said about Daniel Jones, but yet Daniel Jones still have a starting job in the NFL. Like I said, it's been a week of irony as far as Baker Mayfield, and the fact that the same bravado that was endearing him to the Cleveland Browns is what lead him out the door. But the guy they're bringing in is the guy with all the question marks and legal problems coming in. So, and look, the landing spots are drying up. I mean, there aren't too many options out there. Obviously, Indianapolis was a possibility, but Matt Ryan is still now. There's no way he's going to be a backup in Cleveland. They got to move him at some point. It's just a matter of where. And there aren't too many landing spots right now for Baker Mayfield. And also, you got to realize Jimmy Garoppolo is still out there as well.
There's not too many spots for him either, by the way.
The quarterback market has become a barren wasteland with all these moves in the last several days. So it's going to be interesting to see. And there are a couple of ideas that I think Jay will kind of get into.
I will.
But right now, I mean, your question is as good as mine. What's in the future for Baker Mayfield?
Yeah. And if you're the Browns, don't you want something back for Baker Mayfield? You literally hold blank cards in your hand because you have no cards. There were rumors that got not surprisingly shut down that they wanted a first-round pick for Baker Mayfield. That wasn't going to happen, and that definitely isn't going to happen. I don't know if you can get anything higher than a fourth.
I do have a question
right
though.
Now for him.
I do have a question though. You think Baker Mayfield left the keys on the front door? Left the keys to the stadium behind, and make sure to turn out the lights on the way out.
Can't wait for those DeShaun Watson progressive commercials to come out next year. Hopefully not taking place in the masseuse's room. Okay. Jay, let's hear your opinion on this real quick.
Yeah, here's the thing. When Mayfield originally requested a trade before the Browns acquired Watson and the team said no, his preferred landing spot, as Anthony mentioned, was the Colts, who had recently traded Carson Wentz. Then Matt Ryan became a Colt. My next thought about a team that would be a great fit for Mayfield was the Falcons. I thought that Arthur Smith's scheme, which resurrected Ryan Tannehill's career, would be a good place for the former Heisman winner to get a start. But as the rabbi texted me in what felt like 5 minutes after I conveyed this thought to him, quote, "But we forgot, why have Arthur Smith take on a project we can bring in a former student," followed by Mariota to ATL. Sure, having coached him in Tennessee, that made perfect sense. But with the Saints re-signing Jameis Winston, that leaves the Panthers and the Seahawks as the only potential landing spots for Mayfield. Make no mistake here, with the Browns picking up Mayfield's guaranteed fifth-year option, which he's set to make $18.86 million, it means the Browns have to find a trade. They will incur no dead money against their salary cap if they trade him. But if they can't and ultimately have to cut Mayfield, they still have to pay him, and that money would count against the cap, which means even though Seattle and Carolina are not likely to go into the 2022 season with the current makeup of their respective quarterback rooms, they know they can wait until the draft before contacting the Browns about Mayfield. Which is the better landing spot for Mayfield? Looking at the situation purely within a scheme fit 3-foot window at Seattle, and it's not even close, as the situation in Carolina is a dumpster fire of a mess. Seattle, with Shane Waldron as offensive coordinator, runs a similar offensive scheme as the one Mayfield played in with Cleveland. Mayfield will have 2 top-flight wide receivers in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett to throw to. He had a pair of excellent running backs in Cleveland, so getting him on board with Pete Carroll wanting to get back to more of a run-focused offense won't take much, and it would take a lot of playmaking load off of the quarterback position, which would be good for Mayfield, especially since the numbers indicate that Mayfield is not a tier 1 quarterback who can carry an offense. Yeah, last season he dealt with injuries, as Anthony noted, and as not his throwing shoulder, but those of us who've played the position know that even the non-throwing shoulder affects your throwing motion. So he completed just 60.5% of his passes, barely over 3,000 yards, 17 scores, 13 picks. In terms of advanced stats, Mayfield ranked 22nd in True Media's expected points added per play. Football Outsiders had him 23rd in DVOA, and Mayfield ranked 26th in adjusted net yards per attempt. All this paints him as a below-average starter in 2021. But in 2020, he completed 62.8% of his passes, 26 scores, and against only 8 picks, ranking 10th in EPA per play. It's the only time in 4 seasons that he performed like an above-average starter statistically, but it's possible that in the right scheme with the right coaching, he can come close to replicating that. Now, look, it's entirely possible the Seahawks will use the 9th overall pick on a quarterback. Liberty's Malik Williams seems to be on their radar. But even if they do, did I say Williams again? And it's
Yeah, you did.
I don't know why, but it is Willis. Thank you, Rabbi. He seems to be on their radar. But even if they pick him, it might not be a bad idea to take a flyer on Mayfield for one season to allow their next potential franchise quarterback to develop with a lot less pressure.
I will say this. First of all, Seattle is a very good fit, but we have no idea which way Seattle wants to go. They might want to go with the Drew Lock, Geno Smith incumbency this year.
No, Rabbi,
I don't know.
I'm telling you right now, there's no way in hell they are going into that season, even if Carroll wants to run the heaviest run offense he's run since the Russell Wilson era, they are not going into the season with either of those guys as QB1. I said it. I'll state it again.
I'm telling you right now,
reputation
if you want to stake your reputation on it, because if they draft a quarterback, that's very likely to happen.
If they do that,
I'm telling you,
the dumbest thing in recent memory.
That's why you have to see. If you're rebuilding, there's a problem then. If you're rebuilding, you don't want Baker Mayfield because he's too expensive to your team, and Cleveland's gonna have to pay some of that money regardless because you're going to have to.
It's a 1-year flyer, man. Especially
but no one's gonna take the $18 million.
It's honestly, it's a good risk to take.
It's not. Honestly, it is. I don't know if it's a good risk to take, and here's why. Baker has been known as first of all, Carolina has said no, and then it came out that Mayfield's people said, we don't want you either. And that's the biggest problem with Baker Mayfield.
Well, come on now. Would you want to play for Matt Rule after what?
Well, here's the problem, though. Here's the problem, though. Baker Mayfield needs to realize that he's not in a winning situation. He's in the take what you can get category.
Yeah.
Did he play last year hurt? Stop. Did he play last year hurt? Yes, he did. But guess what? This is the NFL. You cannot call yourself a top 15 quarterback and then not take position. You are in no position to do that. None. And that's the problem. The man needs to be humbled. The man needs to compete for a job next year. There is no spot right now where he should go and say, I definitely need to be a QB1, pay me my money. Because if he goes in that direction, Jay, he is going to end up not starting a game next year. Don't laugh.
I am, because I hear what you're saying, but here's the thing. The situation in Seattle is such that it would be no risk at all for the Seahawks, whether they draft Malik Willis or not at number 9, to take Mayfield for a year as a bridge. And Mayfield taking a 1-year deal to play for a team when he knows he's the bridge, that's him humbling himself.
Why would he want to be a bridge if he's already said no to Carolina?
Because let me
Why
tell
would
you
he
something.
want to be a bridge if he said no to Carolina? And there's also another team.
Carolina is an absolutely awful situation
outside of the quarterback.
Rabbi, look at the way those two organizations are. Carolina is a dumpster fire. Okay, they have been.
But guess what? He's also a dumpster fire.
No, he's not. That's the problem.
He is.
No, he's not.
He's in a dumpster fire right now.
I'm sorry. I do not agree with that. He is not. He's not. No, he's not. Okay.
Yes, he's
not.
Anthony, Anthony,
No.
get in here real quick.
Yeah, I will break the tie here. I gotta go with Rabbi here because you gotta think about this. Seattle may be the perfect spot for Baker Mayfield, but he's not in a position where he can pick that opportunity. There's only 32. There's only 32 starting jobs in the NFL, and in Carolina, it's not the greatest situation, but considering what you just went through with the Cleveland Browns, a team you actually led to winning one defensive stop away from an AFC title game to now being out of the door, Baker Mayfield has to show other teams, because right now, if he goes to Carolina, he's not playing for next season. He's playing for the year after and for the rest of his career, because he's got to show the rest of the league.
I get that. I 100% get that, Anthony.
Yeah,
but,
he has to show the rest of the league that, look, he
he's
can
not
still
going to
play
be
the
able to
game.
do that in Carolina.
Yeah,
that's
but
the problem.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, because I don't know where Seattle's going, but Carolina may not be the greatest situation, but it may be the only option for him to show that he can still play as a quarterback, and maybe he signs on to a better situation the year after. But as far as next season, he's in a position where he's gonna have to take what he can get right now and put that ego and put that ego in the back seat and go forward. Man, and look, Sam Darnold actually got on a decent start before the wheels fell off. And even I think Baker Mayfield is a little bit better than Sam Darnold as far as being a competent quarterback. So, and Carolina does have a defense that can keep them in games. Baker Mayfield is a quarterback that he just need to make enough plays and don't lose a game for you to stay competitive. That's how the Browns kind of got by the last 3 years with Mayfield as a starting quarterback. If he could be at least competent enough, at least allow Carolina to be somewhat competitive, and that's where he goes, I think that's a notch, a feather in his cap, and it goes a long way as far as showing other teams after next offseason that Baker Mayfield may be a guy they'll take a chance on and maybe sign to a more of a long-term deal, because the way things played out in Cleveland, I think hurts Baker Mayfield more by his reaction to everything that's going on than anything he's done on the field. I mean, we know he's tough. We know he's we know his character has been in question because of his on-field antics, but we also know that the guy is a competitor. He wants to win. But if he goes to Carolina, he's going to have to just simply prove himself. It may not be a winning situation, but he has to make that into one. And that's what makes a quarterback, as far as being able to have a job in the National Football League. Jimmy Garoppolo was a backup, and we've seen the 49ers win games in spite of him. But he made just enough plays to, at the very least, get a second and a third look as far as, maybe we should bring him in for a 2-year deal. Of course, he's still free agent out there as well. But I'm just using it as an example that Baker Mayfield may not be able to choose the situation he's going to be in, but he's got to make the best of it.
Same with Garoppolo, by the way.
I'm not saying he's going to be able to.
Both of them are not free agents, so.
No, look, I'm not saying that Mayfield's going to be able to decide his own fate, but I'm just looking at the difference between those two organizations purely in that little window in terms of what's the better fit for him. And if I'm him and I'm looking for, and in that context only, there's machinations going on all over the place that are going to determine this. And there's more things that are outside of his purview that are going to determine this. But in terms of what's the best situation for him to end up, it is Seattle. That's the best situation for him to end up in. That's what I'm saying. And honestly, I gotta tell you, if he told off Carolina and said, I'm not sure I want to play for you. Is there some hubris and some arrogance there? Maybe. Is it on brand for him? Yeah. But in terms of what's best for his career, I don't know that playing for Carolina, despite all the points you made, Anthony, and some of them are fair, if I'm him, I can understand why he would not want to go there, because on the surface and based on everything that we've seen and heard and read, that is not a place you're going to go. You can go to resurrect your career.
First of all, 2 more things I'm going to say. One, Jameis Winston accepted a 3rd-string role in a spot where he had no business. He knew he wasn't going to start with. And 2 years later, he's going to be a number 1 starter who just got a 2-year, $28 million contract.
Well, and dude, I would take that as a chance to apprentice under Drew Brees. Hell yeah.
But I'm just saying that he was a guy who had talent, who basically, because of the interceptions and because of the rap that he got, had to take not a risk, but a humbling a little bit and be a third stringer for a year
Well,
and get
yeah,
to where he
but
is
that's
now.
the thing.
I'm just letting you know. Also, there's another team I haven't mentioned, which would be the perfect team for Baker. Not going to say it, but
The
he
Toon
would have to
Squad?
compete for the starting job. He would have to compete for the starting job, and he could be very successful at it. I will
Why
not
are
say
you
that
not
out
gonna?
loud
Why are you not gonna tell us who you're thinking of?
because I want to end this show. Anyway, for Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, I am Stephen Rabinowitz. Thanks for joining us on the Sports Lines. Remember, youtube.com/on the Sports Lines if you want to see the show on demand. Facebook.com/on the Sports Lines if you want to see this show live. And Jay?
At ONTH Sports Lines is our Twitter handle, where you will find links to this show and other interesting sports-related tidbits that we feel is worth your time to check out.
Hey, this
Anthony,
is fun.
do
Let's
you
do it
now
again
know
next
that-
week.
What?
This is fun. Let's do it again next week.
Let's do this again next week. By the way, that team was the Steelers, by the way. Good night, everybody, from On the Sports Lines.
Well, that wasn't going to happen.
Good
'cause
night,
it's running
everybody,
for
from
this
On the
week.
Sports Lines.